Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something that frustrates so many of us: building muscle after age 30. We are officially leaving the teenage bro science at the door, and we're looking at the exact science-backed blueprint for safely and efficiently getting into the absolute best shape of your life in your 30s, 40s, and beyond.
Now, you've probably heard the whispers. You hit the big 3-0, and suddenly all these articles and gym buddies start talking about declining testosterone. They kind of make it sound like your best days of building muscle are firmly in the rearview mirror, right? It's honestly enough to make any guy feel this creeping sense of dread and ask, is it just too late? Are we fighting a losing battle against aging here?
Well, the empowering truth is, absolutely not. It is definitely not too late. In fact, your 30s and beyond can literally be your strongest decade yet. But the rules have changed. That reckless, ego-lifting abandon from your early 20s? Yeah, that won't work anymore. Building serious muscle now means trading all that in for a highly intelligent, structured, and strategic approach.
So here's our roadmap for the explainer today. First up, the age 30 muscle myth. 2, defeating anabolic resistance. 3, the progressive overload principle. 4, training smarter, not harder. 5, the recovery mandate. And finally, number 6, your strongest decade yet.
All right, let's dive into Section 1, the age 30 muscle myth, confronting the real enemy.
You know, people absolutely love to blame a massive drop in testosterone for muscle loss as they get older. But the science shows testosterone only drops by a tiny 1 to 2% a year after 30. I mean, that's barely noticeable. The real villain here, it's something called sarcopenia, and it's primarily driven by a lack of physical activity. It is quite literally a use-it-or-lose-it condition. If you don't give your muscles a reason to stick around, your body will just drop them. So how do we give them a reason to stay? Well, that brings us to our first major pillar.
Section 2, defeating anabolic resistance, the nutrition pillar.
Okay, so as we age, our bodies experience what's known as a blunted muscle protein synthetic response. Basically, anabolic resistance means your muscles are hard of hearing. You have to shout the protein signal louder. That diet that got you jacked back in college, it simply won't cut it anymore, because your muscles literally need a much stronger signal to kickstart that rebuilding and growth process. To really shout that signal, let's look at the contrast in your daily requirements. The standard recommended daily allowance for adults is just 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. But to actually overcome anabolic resistance and build muscle, you need vastly more. We're talking between 1.2 and 1.6 grams and up to 2.2 grams per kilogram if you are actively trying to gain. Pair this super high protein intake with a slight caloric surplus of just 200 to 300 calories, and boom, you're giving your body the exact raw materials it needs to grow.
But wait, it's not just about total protein. It's about the composition. 2.5 grams. Research shows this is the critical threshold of leucine, which is a specific, absolutely crucial amino acid required per meal just to activate the mTOR signaling pathway. And that pathway? It's the biological trigger for muscle protein synthesis. High-quality sources like whey, eggs, and lean meats naturally hit this threshold to maximize your anabolic signaling. Okay, so now that we've fueled the machine, let's dive into the catalyst.
Section 3, the progressive overload principle, the catalyst.
So, progressive overload simply means your workouts have to become more challenging over time. But, and this is key, increasing the weight is just one way to do it. As we get older, endlessly adding more plates to the bar every single week, yeah, that's just a recipe for joint pain. Instead, you can progress by adding reps, increasing your time under tension, reducing your rest periods, or even just switching up the exercise variations. The point is, you don't have to crush your joints with maximum weight to trigger muscle growth. Manipulating these other variables keeps your progress moving forward safely. Now let's talk about structuring that work with execution over ego.
Section 4, training smarter, not harder, structuring the work.
Working smarter starts with mastering your execution, using a tempo like 3-1-1-0. What does that mean? It means taking 3 full seconds to lower the weight. You are completely controlling that eccentric phase, forcing the muscle to do all the work rather than relying on momentum. Second thing, drop the straight sets where you just lift the same heavy weight 5 times in a row. Use ramping sets instead. Start a bit lower and gradually increase the weight with each set. Sure, it takes a little more time to warm up, but you are rewarded with 0 injuries and significantly faster gains.
So what does a really smart week actually look like for a busy professional? Enter the executive 5-day split. Day 1 is push. That's your chest, shoulders, and triceps. Day 2 is pull.
back, and biceps. Day 3, you hit legs. And then, because you're busy, days 4 and 5 are highly efficient 30-minute quick sessions for upper body and lower body. This structured routine perfectly hits every muscle group with compound movements, beautifully balancing progressive overload with your hectic work and family schedule. But remember this, you don't actually build muscle in the gym. You break it down in the gym. You build it while you rest.
Which perfectly sets up Section 5, the recovery mandate, the shield.
Guys, there is sheer terror behind this statistic, 10 to 15%. Check this out. A famous sleep study out of Chicago took healthy men and restricted their sleep to just 5 hours a night for a single week. The result? Their testosterone levels absolutely plummeted by 10 to 15%. Now, considering that natural aging only drops testosterone by about 1 to 2% a year, sleeping 5 hours a night effectively ages you hormonally by 10 to 15 years. In a single week. No way, right?
This is why treating recovery as an absolute mandate and not just an option is crucial. First, you've got to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep to maximize that natural hormone release. Second, and this is wild to me, avoid over-the-counter painkillers like NSAIDs. Studies show they literally shut down muscle protein synthesis at the cellular level. They are quite literally killing your gains. Instead, try natural compounds like curcumin for joint inflammation. Finally, if you do all of this perfectly, the nutrition, the training, the sleep, and your energy and gains are still stalled, well, only then should you consider testosterone replacement therapy. And that's only if a doctor actually confirms your levels are clinically low, like under 300 nanograms per deciliter. Let's bring all these incredible insights together for our final section.
Section 6. Your strongest decade yet. Putting it together. The academic literature is crystal clear on this stuff. The science is absolutely settled. Hitting your muscle groups 2 to 3 times a week with structured volume, overcoming that anabolic resistance with high leucine protein, and rigorously defending your sleep, these are the proven keys to defeating neuromuscular aging. The entire blueprint is right here.
Which leaves us with this final, thought-provoking question to wrap up our explainer today. If the scientific data proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that your absolute best, strongest, and most capable years are still ahead of you, what excuse is left to hold you back? It is time to drop the whole "I'm too old" narrative. Implement this exact blueprint and get to work. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.